It is actually no exaggeration to say that Britain is currently being governed by people who idolise communists, as our Chancellor of the Exchequer, Rachel Reeves, decided to take down the portrait of one of Thatcher's economists in 11 Downing Street and replace it with a picture of the co-founder of the Communist Party of Britain, and so it shouldn't come as much of a surprise that their policies look really communist. We've covered multiple times on the podcast now how the Labour government is basically engaging in a process of dekulakization of the British, particularly English countryside. They seem to want to get rid of the yeoman farmer, which was, of course, the backbone of this country and its strongest bulwark against tyranny. I'll leave the link in the description. Go and watch this after this video. Then you will have all the information you need to fully understand the context of this. Because I'm not going to cover this in detail now. I've already done that on this podcast. What I'm going to talk about now is the vanguard, the media apparatchiks, who have also decided, yes, what makes sense is for Britain to declare war on its own farmers, make sure that the prosperity of the people who make our food is directly threatened, so we can bring about social justice. I mean, just look at this headline. Farmers have hoarded land for too long. Inheritance tax will bring new life to rural Britain. Let's translate this, shall we? Farmers, brackets English people, have hoarded land, brackets own property, for too long. Inheritance tax, bracket theft, will bring new life, bracket foreigners, to rural Britain, brackets state monopoly. Why would we want this? Why is this good? When Jeremy Clarkson described this as a process of ethnic cleansing the other day, it's weird that The Guardian had come out and go, yes, that's exactly what we're doing and we're proud of it. I mean, literally, we're going to enable a younger generation with new ideas to enter the field. Okay, pause there, right? I'm always worried when people who don't know anything about farming think, oh, I've got a bunch of new ideas for farming. Because every time that it was tried, such as like Senkoism or Mao's farming reforms, it ends up with millions of people starving to death. Because it turns out that left-wingers don't know anything about the reality of farming. You know who does? Farmers, actually. They seem to not actually need new ideas. They seem to actually need tax relief so they can make sure that we have lots and lots of food to eat so we don't die. It is actually remarkable how left-wingers think about wealth. I mean, look at this picture. Look at this picture. This would make you think that there was an insanely rich man sat on a huge amount of land who does basically nothing for millions and millions of pounds each year. But again, as we covered in the podcast, that's not really true. Farming is an asset-rich but cash-poor industry. As in, you own lots of things that are valuable, but they don't produce that much profit in the long run. And so this means inheritance taxes are very damaging to the industry, because if you, say, die and you pass on your farm, the farm accrues no more value and produces no more money than it did when you were alive, and yet the people who now own the farm have a massive bill to pay, and they can't afford that. And so they are forced to sell it. So it seems like a way of literally getting rid of the farmers themselves. But they don't know about this. They don't care about this. They seem to think that this is totally fine and they're crazy, right? So let's just get to the conclusion here. Labour needs to win the argument, and to be convincing that that argument must be made from first principles. Inheritance tax springs from the universally held belief that society has the right to share when wealth is transferred on death as a matter of justice. This is not a universally held belief. If anything, I mean, I've spoken to now hundreds of people about inheritance taxes, and I've not been able to find a poll on this. I would love to have been able to find a poll to see what the British public think of inheritance taxes, but I bet it's something like 80% against. No one thinks that society has the right to share when wealth is transferred on death. We have always in this country had primogeniture, right? All the way since like the 1200s, where the property is passed from the father down to the child, down to the eldest son. And we always had the option of disinheriting our own children. Now, that's actually quite an unusual thing. Most societies don't allow the parents to disinherit their children, but we did as an incentive to make sure the children behaved properly. And we had a very active land market, for example, for the best part of 800 years in this country. Again, very unusual. So to say, well, it's just, it's a universally held belief that society has the right to steal someone's property and share it out with it who it wants. No, that's not our belief at all. Our belief that private property is actually sacred and inviolable. It belongs to me, and I will give it to who I want to give it to in my will, and I don't think you have a right to it. And if like I said, if anything, it seems that inheritance tax is universally resented. Everyone seems to hate it. And so this is not, I think, something that follows. And he says, well, this principle should apply to all the states and to everyone. No. Yeah, it shouldn't apply to anyone. I don't think the government, after I spent a lifetime paying taxes, scrimping and saving, and whatever money I have left, or the value of the property I have left, I want to give to my son, and suddenly the government's like, yeah, okay, what about me, though? No, what about you? You had everything up until this point. Piss off. It breaks up monopoly, especially of land. The idea that they think that the land in England is monopolised is crazy, especially as what's going to happen when people have to start selling off their farms? Well, who's going to buy it? Oh, it's just going to be young farmers, bro. Yeah, right. We're so flush with young farmers. No, it's going to be BlackRock, right? It's going to be international funds that buy up our farmland. It's going to be Bill Gates. Let's be real, right? And so it's no surprise that people were looking at this going, my God, this seems to actually be Stalinism. This seems to be Labour declaring war on the yeoman farmer, who in other countries would have been called the kulak, right? This, and Elon Musk was calling it exactly this, and I don't blame him. That's what it looks like. And so you get people like Dr. Jake Scott here who are like, well, hang on a second, this is crazy. And his numbers are completely wrong. And for example, he says, the threshold at which the tax kicks in at 2 million means that it applies to farms of 177 acres. The average farm in this country is 217 acres, which means it's going to apply to most farms. It's not going to apply to just, not even the average, to like a small band of very wealthy, massive landowners. No, it's not going to apply to them. It's going to apply to almost everyone. It's going to apply to 2/3 of the farms in this country. And so that's going to really screw people over, which is why they're going out to protest tomorrow. I'm actually going down to the protest. If you see me, say hi. And so this, again, he's got a really long thread here. And it, of course, just completely demolishes it with the numbers. It's crazy how difficult this is going to be for our farmers. And so it's right, okay, so this isn't about the data, this isn't about the facts, this isn't about the figures. What this is about is demonizing a class of people who are not reliant on the government, or at least not dependents of the government, who can make money on their own. So we get to the mirror. Keir Starmer didn't pick a fight with tax-dodging landowners, but it's one he must win. Right, this is all wrong, right? This is complete lies. First things first, he did pick a fight with them. He's the one who decided, I'm going to start taxing the land you pass on to your children, even though you don't have the money that we imbue, the money equal to the value that we imbue into the property. So you now have to summon up a bunch of money by selling some of that property. Keir Starmer absolutely picked this fight. This was not necessary. He didn't have to do this, but they've done it because they hate farmers, because they don't understand them, because they're communists, right? The second part, tax-dodging landowners. Now the landowners are criminals. Now the farmers themselves have been rendered criminal, as if they have committed a crime, as if this rule has just always been there, and the farmers, for all time until now, have just been dodging it. No, they did nothing wrong. The government is penalising them arbitrarily because it hates them and doesn't care in any way, shape or form. I mean, look at their justification. Labour MPs in rural areas are to be briefed on selling the benefits of better health and social care, schools, policing and bus services that will be delivered in the shires. Right, so we're just going to steal value, money, wealth from yeoman farmers, and then we're going to redistribute it on services. Well, I'm not in favour of that, okay? I'm not in favour of you pissing more money away into the black hole that is the NHS, social health care and social housing. Right, schools for foreigners. Policing, oh my God, as if, and bus services. I'm not in favour of this. I'd rather people keep their own wealth and pay for things privately. I'm at that point at this point, because they just keep making things worse. He even has the gall to point out that last year, Keir Starmer said to the National Farmers Union that he wasn't going to do anything to target them. I mean, why you would need to say that is like beyond me, because most people would think, well, hang on, of course I'm not going to attack the farmers. Britain produces 50% of the food it eats. We have to import 50% of our food. So why would we not focus on improving our productivity at home so we weren't so reliant on the global market? And then, of course, you have screeching shitlibs on Twitter, like Terry Christian, who posts stuff like this. Just, again, these people have lots of followers, and they start just demonizing farmers. Sorry, farmers. What are we doing? Why are we demonizing the people who produce our food? In response to the No Farmers, No Food campaign, one farmer is saying, well, look, I feel like I've worked all my life and now it's all going to go up in smoke and tax. I don't really think this is fair. And he's like, well, poor bloke, farm worth 12 million quid and will pay £600,000 inheritance tax, but can do it over 10 years. That's a tax of 60 grand a year, man. Imagine we'd all struggle inheriting on 11.4 million quid. Terry, that's not how it works, mate. Right? He's not inheriting a pot of gold. He's inheriting land he has to work to make productive, and out of the profits of the productivity of the land, you are taking this. And that, again, as if farms are just operating on the most gargantuan margins as well, right? He says, I don't know how I'll sleep worrying about them paying a share. Fair share, 40% of everything. 40% is not a fair share, mate. It's highway robbery. Why are we doing this? Why are we demonizing the people who make the food? Why do we think that if we just steal money from the farmers, that all of the problems with the unfundability of social care, of health care, of all the other ridiculous things that we piss money up against the wall on, we think that'll finally solve that problem, do we? No, you're desperate. That's the thing. All of these people are desperate. They want that to be the solution, but it is not the solution. More stealing from people, more redistribution. This is not the answer to Britain's financial problems, but we've got a new target now. We've demonized them sufficiently. And so, yeah, we're just going to go for the farmers. Absolute madness.